Welcome, data people. We are Zuma. My name is Matt, and this is the Data for Good podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Zuma. Zuma is a dedicated recruitment company focusing on data positions across Berlin. The Data for Good podcast is for the world of data science, analytics, and engineering, giving you a platform to hear the thoughts and opinions of data leaders from Berlin and beyond. Today, we are joined by Alexander Novikov, Director of Business Intelligence at Enpal. Alexander, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Matt. Very nice to be here with you. And yeah, I'm doing fine, and hopefully you're doing fine too.
All good is here. Thank you for asking. Yeah, looking forward to digging into some wisdom that you're going to share with us today. But first off, can you give us a brief introduction into Alexander?
Okay, Alexander. Alexander is the man who is very passionate about the data and passionate about the data for last, I think, 7 years already. And originally, my background is more in engineering and product management, and I think I was doing it for like biggest part of my career. But in like about 6 or 7 years ago, I was leading IT operations team and was touching a lot of backend systems, and also was touching a lot of stakeholders who were super interested in the numbers that are in these backend systems. And I started to do SQL queries and other interesting things. And since then, I don't remember what happened. And now we are talking. And Enpal for me is the fourth company where like leading the data and business intelligence part.
Amazing. Well, yeah, we're going to tap into some of that knowledge and all those experiences today. And we are here today to talk about regularization. That's the topic for today. What is regularization? What do we mean?
Yeah, this is like the thing that potentially interesting for us to bring from the people who are working with data, with numbers, or with machine learning, and share it with other people outside of the like data or mathematically dedicated people. And when it comes to regularization, most of us know it from the machine learning and from the optimization of the cost function when you optimize the function not only for the best matching or best fitting of the model towards the data that being put into the machine learning algorithm, but also for the simplicity of the algorithm, right? When we introduce special weights for the amount of parameters in the system, in the model, and we try to optimize not only for the weights and optimal weights itself, but also for the number of weights and their values, right? So minimizing them. And most often it's used to fight overfitting of the machine learning models. So overfitting is the case when you have data, you put it into the machine learning algorithm, and your machine learning algorithm does a very good job of training and like eventually and predicting the quality values on this training set. But whenever you bring into this algorithm any new set, any new data, it badly fails. So basically, it overfits to the training data. And regularization is something that's being used to fight it. And interesting thing about regularization from the machine learning perspective, it's something that potentially fights the complexity of the model. But funny enough, in order to fight the complexity, you need to put extra effort, meaning extra calculation into your model. And if like we think about regularization in a more generic way, it is an effort taking to focus on the essentials and removing the noise of the rest.
So, and what? God, I was going to say, why is it a hot topic now? Why is it so important right now?
To me, it became interesting as like this is machine learning algorithms, something that we see in pure math or computer science, but it's somewhat applicable to the real world, right? Currently, I'm in a managerial position, right? So things that I care, like of course, I care a little bit of the machine learning and good algorithms that our team's using, but first of all, I care about the people and the success of the people that I'm responsible for. And from this perspective, I understand that this is like a big and complex system, right? It's a model. And this model, in order to operate efficiently in the real world, needs to be on one side adequate to this real world, on the other side, not too overfitting it, right? So this team that should have some kind of structure that is on one side simple enough, and on the other side efficient, right? And it is very interesting that we can see in the world that teams tend to overfit the problems that they're facing, right? So if there's a stakeholders that need to be served, there would be most likely excessive communication with the stakeholders, and their problems would be taken like as granted, and all of them will be addressed. And it is somewhat of the symptom of the like real world overfitting, right? When the team, organization, aka model, overfits the problem. And I find it interesting that in order to fight this overfitting, in order to simplify things, in order to, for example, ask the team to like structure the communication a little bit, right? So instead of like having an open channel for all the requests and responding any moment in time, just setting some kind of time frame, or setting some kind of weekly schedule fixes with the partner team. Asking the team to prioritize items that are coming to them, right? So not responding to everything, but responding to the items that are actually valuable and important. So not using the, not addressing everything. And these simplification measures, aka regularization measures, they require additional effort to be taken. And therefore, I find it fascinating that such thing as regularization quite applicable in the reality, normal practice of work. And especially it's quite important for the companies that are a bit bigger and a bit more complex, right? So if you have not so many elements to control, like in a small startup, it's fine, right? So over communication, some kind of lack of structure, lack of process is fine. It's something that may be there by design. So you have a boiling system that finds its better state. But the bigger you grow, the less regularization, so the more overfitting that you observe in the processes and the collaboration, the more trouble you have. And therefore, application of regularization is somewhat important, and not just important, but even mandatory for the bigger scale organization.
So it sounds that we're trying to be less complicated without losing some of the sophistication of the work that we're doing.
Yes, exactly. So it's like regularization is about making things simpler, putting effort into it, yet it doesn't mean that we are losing sophistication, right? So it doesn't mean that we are losing accuracy of our model, right? We likely do some minor trade-off there, but the trade-off is minor in comparison to the efficiency that you gain from the regularization applied to the model. One of the examples.
Go on. Yeah, no, go on. No, please. An example would be great.
One of the examples of regularization applied to the extreme would be like Spartans and the way they speak. We know this word as like adjective, laconic, right? It's because Sparta is in the state of Laconia in Greece, so that's where it's coming there from there. And laconic is being about like succinct to the extreme, or concise to the extreme. And there's like a legend about King Philip of Macedonia who sieged Sparta and wanted the city to be given to him. And he sent emissary to Sparta and asked, if you won't surrender, I will destroy the city. And Spartans replied to him in extremely laconic way. They replied to him, if. And King Philip, being very respectful of Spartans, actually decided not to attack the city. And this is a like nice and picturesque example of application of regularization on the thing that we actually dealing every single day with, right? With our speech, with the way we communicate. And Spartans were very good at it. They were on one side extremely disciplined.
Yeah.
On the other side, they were laconic in the way that they applied their discipline not only to their regiment, but also to the way they speak.
Mm. The beauty in simplicity.
Exactly. On the other side, you also can think that this simplicity is not just being simple and easy, like losing sense. Sense is not lost in the answer of Spartans to the King Philip. Sense is there. It's a very strong message. So we are ready to fight. We will stand the ground, and we have nothing to negotiate with you. And yet, answering in one word is very strong.
Does it leave too much to the imagination or to the understanding of the other side when we are so minimalistic?
Yes and no, right? So on one side, what is important in applying regularization is to keep essentials, right? The things that actually matter, right? So the parameters of the system that actually define the eventual result, right? So, and you're just emphasizing them. And what you do, you remove the detail. And for example, in computer games, like one of the methods of optimization of the performance of the games would be to decrease the details that are shown to the players, right? And this way, the players can still experience to the very big extent the same game,
Mm-hmm.
but with the way lower requirements for their computer, for their computation power, for to run the game. And yes, it's true that some part of experience, like a little bit of realism, like a little bit of details will be lost. On the other side, the gain is extreme efficiency that people can use. And true, right? Like we don't need to apply regularization like ultimately to everything, right? There
Mm-hmm.
are areas where we benefit from the complexity, from sophistication, I don't know, in, for example, in art, right? So some artists they do regularize their work, right? And
Yeah.
so we know Picasso, for example, going into Cubism, like instead of being explicitly using the like everything available to him, he goes into like simpler forms, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
part of the art, right? So on the other side, we quite often think about art as being uh, captivating in details, and it's example where regularization is not naturally applicable. Yet, when we talk about business, we talk about efficiency. If we talk
Mm-hmm.
about efficiency, we talk about optimization for it, and therefore regularization comes into play.
Why do you think we're so obsessed with overcomplicating things? Surely it would be more natural for us to do things simply, to do as little work as possible, especially in data. Like, why do we have the urge to do more and overcomplicate?
It's a very good question. Like as a human beings, I think we naturally tend to respond with attempt to capture as many details as we can. I think it's some kind of survival mechanics in mechanics in us, and uh, it's like like we when we see potential risk in there's a tiger in the bush, right? So you better be over caring and
Mm.
taking care of this risk precautiously rather than being ignored, right? So therefore, it is somewhat of our nature to try to keep eyes on details and to the low probability things that are happening around us. It's counterintuitive to us to go other way around. There's also interesting thing, for example, there's like exploitation, explore and exploit problem that we quite often face, right? So when people do some kind of research, and then based on the result of the research, like from the very unknown state, they come to the state when they know the things, and then start using it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you apply math, quite often you end up in something like 37% rule, right? So that's just like you need to do exploration for 37% of the time, and then you can go into exploitation. When you give the same thing to the people without math, and just run experiment empirically, you will notice that people will explore to 80 to 90% and then exploit to the very little. It's
Okay.
again the same, I think, pattern of us knowing that the world is changing, it's hard to predict it, and we better be safe than sorry. Again, so it's a pattern that came from the fact that we had to go through evolution and survive. On the other side, now we are working in the systems that are more artificial and efficiency, like coming from the logic, coming from our knowledge, can be brought into them.
You've given this a lot of thought. If we were to give some takeaways to people who are looking to become more simplistic, more efficient, when we talk about data and machine learning, what are the first steps? How do we become more aware?
First of all, it's actually the thing. So being aware of the fact that you need to simplify things, right? It starts there. So if you tend to apply some regularization, we want to establish some processes. We naturally speak about, okay, that is one metric that matters. So North Star metric is better than like 10,000 metrics for the people how to work with, right? This is a common sense thing.
Yeah.
On the other side, if we understand that this common sense things actually examples of regularization, and we can extend the scope of regularization into the other domains. Let's say I write an email. If I make it more concise, more laconic, I apply regularization. We have a conversation with somebody, right? If we bring some agenda, some structure to it, so we decrease the complexity, we decrease the amount of parameters being there, right? So then it's again act of regularization. And when you start thinking about actions, your work routines, from the perspective, how can I make it more efficient from the simplicity perspective, and intentionally start applying it, then suddenly the scope of regularization will grow and hopefully efficiency as well.
Is there a question of understanding now? If you're a senior specialist, you know what's important, you can cut out all the unnecessary aspects. If you're maybe a bit more junior, you're trying to get as much in as possible to make sure you're not missing anything. Where's the line there?
It's a very good question as well, right? So it requires this line requires effort to be found. That's exactly the point of regularization. So you don't get to the understanding what is essential and what is noise without putting effort into it, right? If you look into the math, there should be multiple cycles of training or epochs of trainings before you get the feeling which parameter is going to be minimized and which parameter is going to be maximized. And the same goes for the human, right? So we have our experiences, have our exploration part as the cost. And we can go through this exploration with just by nature, like by intuition, right? And learning some things and learning other things, or we can be more like more mind driven or mindful in what we do and ask ourselves, okay, I'm exploring certain thing, right? So I'm doing some kind of learning. What would be my end result? What would be the thing that I want to achieve? I don't know. I'm going and learning new programming language, for example.
Yeah.
Right. And I decide for myself what is my goal, right? What is my optimal state that I want to optimize for. Then I have no idea where to start. So I start with video tutorial, and like buying the book, going and asking friends who know the things. And I can do the small check-ins, which of the actions actually lead me to my goal quicker and better, and then prioritize them. Right. So this way, empirically, I'm going with intention to pick the most optimal way, most simple way, and most like efficient way. I do the optimization and pick or leave for myself the method learning that actually works the best for me.
This is kind of the 20/80, the finding the 20% that gets the 80%.
Yeah, and I think 2080 is another example of our like duration for regularization, right? So we know that 20% of effort leads to the 80% of result, and exactly intention of regularization to define this 20% of effort. And in order to define them, you just need to think about it. You need to keep it in mind. So you want to discover it. You're just not doing everything all at once. You do it with intention to get to the result and optimize your way towards there. And it requires clear thinking. That's
Yeah.
first of all that is necessary.
It sounds like a no-brainer to start working towards this, but what should we be cautious of? What kind of hard lessons have you learned while trying to implement this?
They're like a natural opposite or antonym of regularization, because regularization fights overfitting. It's like when we have too much complexity, too many parameters in the system. And natural opposite of the overfitting is bias, right? So when things are too simple.
Mm.
And so when you do apply regularization, right, it's important to keep an eye that you're not introducing too much bias. You're not making things too simple, so that model can do still something, but it's generally not so useful in comparison to anything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you state the company mission or vision as we need to earn money, it would be a biased vision, right? In a way, it's too simple, right? It's applicable to everyone, true,
Yep.
but this is not a helping model, right? It doesn't tell you how exactly what would be our strengths, what we're trying to achieve, like what kind of customers we want to address, and so on. So this is the mm, biggest and most important caveat there. Second thing is about, let's say, discipline and regularization. They have uh, positive feedback on one another.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if you're more disciplined, most likely you apply more regularization. So it's like coming from the word itself and how we perceive it, right? Discipline is like meaning someone is like strict to themselves, having schedule, having things arranged, planned, and so on, right? So, and we know if someone is strict and having a plan,
Yep.
most likely they will be more successful, and their discipline and their routines will be more sticky. And when somebody has like opposite, right, being more ease to themselves, not planning things, more ad hoc, more chaotic, then regularization is not happening, and such person have a risk of not being so efficient and not successful. And again, this is example of positive feedback, right? So the one thing make other thing. Um, we don't know whether Spartans were laconic because they were disciplined fighters, or they were disciplined fighters because they were first of all laconic in their thinking. It's like chicken egg thing.
Yeah.
But we do know that one thing complement another. And so this is important. And important side of like on the bright side, it's understandable. Yeah, apply regularization, you being discipline and thinking, right? How I can make things simpler, addressing them, running extra round to keep the system, keep demon of complexity at bay.
Mm-hmm.
But the trouble starts when you go other way around, right? So when you lose control,
Right.
and then the positive feedback, unfortunately, makes things way worse. And if you like lose at planning, which is example of regularization, you suddenly became too occupied with the things that are not planned or somehow distracting you, and you don't even know their value, just being in
Mm-hmm.
reactive mode. And the state becomes worse and worse because you cannot find the time for planning, and uh, things escalating in very negative way. So this is second. This is second big thing to be aware of.
So, as a manager and someone who's kind of driving this type of initiative, what steps or what procedures, protocols do you need to put in place to facilitate?
Like in order to make regularization as a thing that actually works, it starts from oneself, right? So
Hmm.
trying to be example of the simplicity or like laconism in the way you speak, in the way you communicate, in the way you structure the, I don't know, goals, visions, plans, right? So keeping them short, concise, it creates an example for other people. And this is where the magic comes, right? So you don't get like big gain of regularizing oneself. You get the biggest gain of regularizing the system, the people around, right? So I try to be explicit with them in a way. So
Yeah.
uh, dear colleagues, I really want us to keep things simple to fight the complexity of organization. We are working in a very big organization, many departments. We have so many communication channels, so many problems to solve that this complexity is overwhelming, right? So,
Hmm.
and I really want us intentionally on our side to keep complexity at base. So, and applying the same way of thinking to whatever we do, right? So, if we organize rituals, so what are they? Do we have too many of them? Can we make less of them? Can we make agenda more narrow for them? And
Hmm.
so on. Basically, asking people to apply uh, regularization directly and explicitly. Uh, and second thing is more like about keeping the culture or let's say value, mm, cultural values in the team also rather simple, right? So it's like
Yeah.
simplicity has a positive feedback to provoke simplicity all around. So in our team, we are focusing on collaboration and transparency, keeping just two things there
Yeah.
as like drivers for the culture, make people think as well in a bit simpler way. So like if there's like such big thing as the culture of the team defined in two words, uh, everything we can do can be defined in a shorter and like in smaller form with the same
Hmm.
meaning. So this way, uh, people get into the topic, right? On one side, they know that regularization as activity of keeping things simple is important and promoted. On the other side, they see examples starting from the things as culture
Hmm.
where regularization is applied. And I hope it works.
How much pushback do you get, if any?
Uh, Pushback happens in the moments like when regularization has not been applied yet.
Mm.
And for example, we discuss some kind of process and we have idea how this process can run. And then I ask, hey, let's make it simpler and shorter. And pushback is happening. Come on, we discussed it so like it covers our problems so well. Yeah, I say yes, I agree, but uh, it covers our problems right now and for the given circumstances. But if circumstances changes, does it still
Hmm.
cover it? Oh, maybe no. Maybe we can make it simpler. Also, another advantage that's easy to bring typically, right? So the simpler the process, less steps in it, less people involved, the more efficient it becomes, right? And it's also like important thing. So basically, uh, problem there that regularization is a fork,
Yeah.
and any effort requires a little bit of push for ourselves and for the discipline of the team to be taken.
Awesome. Well, it's such a fascinating concept and something that we probably should all um, take on. To bring this home, can we go too simple? Can we, once we hit a nice state of process, can we become too simple? Is it too
Exactly.
much of an extreme?
It's a risk. It's a risk of applying regularization without being conscious about it. So as I told you, so overfitting and opposite of it, bias, being too simple. And uh, yeah, we need to keep eye on it, right? So the model, uh, as like was said, all models are wrong, but some of them are helpful. And it's important about thinking about like processes, systems, communication as models, right? And they are all wrong, like even the ones that are overfitting or the ones that are too simple. But point is, with helpfulness, right? It is a way for us to judge whether the model is biased or not, right? If it lost any helpfulness, then yeah, it's biased, right? It's too simple, right? As I said before, vision of organization to earn money, to make profit is too simple. It's not helpful.
So investing time. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, a vision of organization that is stated in the book of 100 pages also not helpful. It's overfitting. It's totally focused on the things that are happening around. It might be even good, but nobody will ever read it and ever use it. So, and then vision or like a guiding principle for organization is something that ideally should be can be stated in like one pager or like not so long deck of slides, and then it works.
Absolutely. Investing time and keeping things simple. What a great episode, Alexander. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. But thank you very much for your time and your rich insights.
Thank you very much as well for hosting it, and it was a pleasure sharing. I hope the ideas are not too abstract and people find it useful. And once again, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. No, I think a lot of people take a lot of value from something that maybe people know but aren't doing anything about yet. So it's always good to give the excuse for people to start implementing these best practices. But to the listeners, don't forget to like and share so that we can get this message out to as many people as possible. But it is bye from us. Thanks once again, Alexander.
Thank you.
Ciao for now.
Bye-bye.